Now, before you say anything, there is a difference between being useless and being weak. It's a matter of perspective, really. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, on this channel, we always like to see the positive in characters and think of the potential in said characters, which is why we will, in time, do a list of the characters in Dragon Ball that have, or had, the most potential in the time that they were in the show, as well as being able to stick the landing, or looking like that they will if the story for them has not been finished yet. Think for example, Caulifla or Mirrors. They have plenty of room to grow still, and the time that they have been in the show have clearly shown us that there is plenty to talk about with them. That being said, there are plenty of times where Haverock and I have sighed in disappointment, cried in misery, or raged with anger about characters which had the potential to be used well or be something great, had something going for them, which was really compelling, mind you, but they either disappeared or just simply didn't live up to what they were hyped up to be originally. And if you are a regular to the channel, then I think you might be able to guess who one of these people might be. For this list, we are not taking power into consideration here, because otherwise you could just throw in any weak characters or any characters from Dragon Ball Early Z and just call it a day. We already sort of did that list a while back, which you can watch right up top, and that was actually, admittedly, a lot of fun, despite the low-key rants. This time though, we are keeping things relative to what they were set out to do. But before we start, do check out the merch store for some January bargains using the code SUBS to get 10% off your entire order. Masako.cc/store. Number 10. Raditz. Masako, how dare you! You're putting Raditz on the list! I know, you might be surprised why I would subject the channel's darling to this countdown, but I'm just showing you guys, I'm trying to be fair. We need to take all the what if love and put it to the side for a moment to discuss why he would make the cut for this list, which isn't exactly flattering. This guy was meant to be a big deal, a huge one. Not only did he reveal the existence of the Saiyans and that there was a huge amount of space to explore, but he made sure that the character of Goku would be changed beyond recognition before Z had barely even gotten out of the starting gate. He was a Saiyan too. He did have a use, and it was carried out. But alas, after just 5 episodes, it became clear to us that Raditz was just a throwaway character. He was there in order for his brother to gain the power of Kaioken and the trademark Genki Dama. That was pretty much it. Someone of that magnitude, trash. I personally felt that he would have to be listed here, but not as really useless, because without him, we would have never become aware that space was a thing. Well, as far as we know. But that being said, this wasn't an exclusive thing that only Raditz could have done. Either another Saiyan could have arrived on Earth, or a minion of Lord Frieza. They could have been sent out to scan out Raditz's younger brother, leaving the other Saiyan with Vegeta and Nappa. It was just for shock value that a double whammy of plot twists right at the beginning of Z was implemented. I can't be too hard on the character here. He was just chucked in there and then cast aside. Also, the fact that he hasn't been added to the Fighters roster yet kinda adds fuel to this placing too. I want him in Fighters, dang it! Number 9. Android 19. He was a tool. Not a very good one either. Granted, he did have power and was originally meant to be one of the main baddies of the Android saga, initially. One of the 2 menaces, supposedly, that Trunks had originally fought in the future. That's why in the kind of premonition that Trunks had, we saw 2 blobs. It's because Toriyama probably hadn't designed them yet. But that turned out to not be 19's destiny. Toriyama's editor famously derided 19 as a fatso, and Dr. Giro, or Android 20, as an old geezer. Hardly the best examples of the main villains for a new saga, right? Especially off of the back of Frieza's epic saga. All that 19 did was scan stuff, and that was probably something that Giro could have done himself. Also, the only reason that Android 19 was able to best Goku was that the latter had the beginnings of the heart virus to deal with at the same time as trying to fend off a foe. 19 could have been more useful had his master realised the potential of Super Saiyan earlier, or had the means to study them undetected that was still intact instead of being blown up during the Saiyan attack, 19's place in the story had the biggest climb down from what Toriyama originally had planned for them. In the end, 19 was there to add peril for Goku's predicament, dealing with a major handicap, and then to just be an example of Prince Vegeta realizing the power of Super Saiyan and utterly dispelling the myth and the legend, as well as the current notion, that a Super Saiyan had to have a pure heart. Nope, you just had to really want it, as well as drink plenty of juice. Number 8. Marjube. Yes, it may be a little obvious, but it's just so dang true. Goku's protege, the guy that he believed in, and the one that is being teased so much in Dragon Ball Super, amounted to nothing. This was End of Z Goku's ace in the hole, the thing to get him inspired to train again after years of melancholy, as well as actually celebrating the reincarnation of Kid Buu, and the newly chosen successor to Goku's place in the Dragon Team at the head of it. That sounds so cool. It was clear at that point to Goku that Gohan wasn't going to be the one to carry the team into the next generation, so Oob, here I hear, he was the next best option at the time, and Goku saw to it that that would happen with everything that he had had. Oob on his own did help save some Earthlings from being controlled by Baby in GT, but he was simply outclassed by everyone else. But because of the overwhelming task at hand without his master there for guidance, he might have been more hopeful with Goku helping to find Black Star Balls instead, but sadly that wasn't to be. It would have actually been really cool to see Oob traveling the universe with Goku, like some kind of adventure. But then we got the twist of Majin Buu saving his life by fusing with him and becoming Marjube. This was a really cool and remarkable plot point, which instantly raised his potential to new heights and gave Majin Buu a sense of purpose, never before seen. But he was just a delaying tactic for Goku getting the win in the end, and was humiliated by being turned into chocolate. He is on the lower end of this list because they were able to claim that, oh, he meant to turn into chocolate to weaken Baby from within. Marjube does assist Goku in some ways, but it is a major climb down to deal with here, going from Goku's second in line to Goku's tool. Number 7. Gowasu. In my opinion, Dragon Ball Super's main thought experiment was the supposition that the higher-ups of the Dragon World were a bunch of no-hopers, and that the mortals were there to really give them the Ghiblies, to sum it up. I think Shock Pikachu could be used to describe the likes of the GP, the Angels, and the like at that moment. Most of these beings had no idea how to function except for the likes of Belmod, who was able to play everybody for chumps pretty much. But then again, it's not an individual problem. The jobs of these beings is not to meddle with normal beings' affairs. They're meant to watch from the sidelines. They are meant to be impartial and observe, maintain the status quo. And sadly, Gowasu took his job a little too seriously. He's not the worst at this though. That's gonna come later. Gowasu spent almost his entire waking days with his apprentice Zamasu for seemingly centuries, training him up to one day take over his job as the Supreme Kai of Universe 10. Zamasu did indeed have the skills to step up to this job to become a good Supreme Kai, but thoughts of an unsettling nature started to fester within his mind, and what really brings the old guard into this list and discussion as a whole is that Gowasu failed to do anything about it except take his young one to a timeline and planet, where they were called barbarians. Any other world would have probably been a better example of species evolving into something better, but no. Then again, if you saw the Tournament of Power lineup for Universe 10, then I guess that Gowasu's thought process really wouldn't surprise you. It didn't have much in the means of variety. It led to an entire multiverse being erased and a fallen Kai to emerge. Not something you'd want on your resume. If only Gowasu had cottoned onto his apprentice's growing negativity sooner. He could have either shunted Zamasu out of the spotlight, or given him something really mundane to do for a long time, or simply punished him. Sure, thematically it's good for us, and it traversed thoughts Dragon Ball has rarely supposed before, but in terms of an actual Supreme Kai, sorry Gowasu, you're kind of rubbish. Number 6. Imperfect Cell. The double future one. Now before you leap up in horror, I'm not talking about that Cell, That version of the Bugman was one of the most effective villains in the entire series of Dragon Ball, and actually one of my personal favourite bad guys. Now, for some context, there are 3 versions of Cell in the Dragon Ball Z timeline. First, there is the embryonic one in the present timeline, which never got a chance to be useful, since Krillin just aborted that project. Then there is the Cell that we know the most, who came from another future, stealing that Trunks' time machine, and proved that multiverse theory isn't all that great, and this one did the most for all concerned. Then there is the 3rd version of Cell, the one that was left skulking around for 2 decades, unable to absorb androids 17 and 18, and was then finished off by future Trunks within seconds. Okay, question. How did he not absorb the androids sooner? They weren't exactly hiding in the shadows, and you could have given them a challenge or maybe snuck up on them unawares. No! This Cell was a coward and failed to maximize the lack of interference from the Dragon team. Also, Cell couldn't find 17 and 18 at all, despite all the carnage they were wreaking. Surely he'd be able to watch TV or read a newspaper. The most known Cell was really good at finding them. You, sir, are a disgrace. His nature meant that he should have been very cunning and sneaky, using instincts, able to pounce at any moment, especially since our droids can't sense energy, and also there was no Android 16 and his radar to help them. It should have been easy pickings for that Cell, and we could have had Perfect Cell greeting future Trunks when he returned, another challenge altogether. But all we got was something anticlimactic. Number 5, Yamu. So you think this guy did stuff, but in actuality, it was his colleague that did all the heavy lifting in this arc. Much to my chagrin and empathy for Videl in that scene. This is a shame because Yamu was seen to be rather shrewd and more in control of the power bestowed to him by Barbady's mind control. The only thing he did, to my relief in a way, was to tell Spopovich to stop against Videl. Had he not, I think he would have been out of the story much sooner thanks to a rampaging Gohan. The only reason Yamu could actually drain Gohan was because Shin allowed it to happen. Had Shin not done that, I think Yamu would have either had a really big challenge upon him or he would have been toast. He's not even useful as a minion since Pui Pui offed him, so really, he was just there to adhere to Dragon Ball's trope of having double acts for side characters. Number 4. Bio Broly. Yes, Bio Broly is a movie villain, but his movie is arguably one of the most skippable, save for Android 18 and Krillin in the story. They were pretty awesome to see. But the focus is squarely on Broly here. This isn't strictly speaking the same Broly we saw in movies 8 and 10. This is the creation mustered from the remains of Broly, all for the purposes of improving a greedy millionaire's desire to make Bio Warriors. Hey, dude. Dr. Cochin wants to know your location. This Broly is so much weaker than the original one that Gohan and the other Z-Warriors don't bother to come help except for 18 and Krillin. He's not much of a bother and, oh yeah, salt water is the thing that ultimately stops this baddie. But this movie was a pure cash grab to artificially drag out Broly's legacy into a trilogy on the part of the people over at Toei. You see, back in the day, these DBZ movies were shown as a double bill with other series movies versions at festivals, hence why they're usually only 40 to 50 minutes because there's 2 of them. And I think that ideas were a little on the low side, and the need to utilise the likes of Goten and Trunks were required as part of the remit, as well as to eke out Broly some more. Why isn't he at number 1 though? Well, it's just because it's a movie. Movies can be more forgiven for wackier ideas, so it's no higher than at number 4. Number 3, Shin. Oh yeah, you knew this was coming. 28 planets with civilizations on them. Like we mentioned with Gowasu, a Supreme Kai is meant to be an impartial observer of what they see. But when the going gets tough, you really need to step in and do something, otherwise your universe goes kaputski. Sure, Shin was thrust into the job a little too early thanks to Boo and Bibbidi, but did all that time in the role, millions of years between then and now, mean nothing? Didn't he learn anything? A good Supreme Kai should have a healthy relationship with their counterparts, the likes of Whis and Beerus, like Universe 11 has, or even Universe 6, kind of. Shin really has shown he is not fit for the task. Unless he's in Super Dragon Ball Heroes, that is, where he's actually grown a pair, seemingly out of nowhere. Yeah, he has helped with Patara earrings from time to time, but his introduction as a new being and someone to respect was a very long time ago. Back right at the beginning of the tournament saga, before Boo, he was really cool. Really much of an enigma, but now he's pretty much a mewling shadow of his initial self. Number 2. Tarble. We have talked at lengths about this one, so I will keep this simple. Tarble is one of the biggest examples of a character losing usefulness in just one outing, actually during an outing. At first, you see him deliver a warning to his brother and reveal his existence. Okay, cool, fair enough, Vegeta has a brother. Then he reveals he's not strong. Okay. Then the bad guys show up and Tarble just sort of lets the Earth crew take care of it, and he blends into the crowd of onlookers. Literally, he's at the back and having no dialogue for the second half of the entire special of Yo Son Goku and his friends return. Basically, Toriyama and the gang ran out of ideas for him. You can clearly tell from his first appearance in the special that Tarble was teased to be someone of interest, someone who looked intimidating, the brother of Vegeta. There's so much potential to be had here. But then it all sort of fell apart. Granted, he could be seen as a subversion of Vegeta's brash and sharp personality, but I have never seen a character be mentioned so much in the main timeline and then never seen again. But there's a reason for that. Kaba. Kaba is a retooled version of Tarble, plain and simple. He is that character done right, and Vegeta has shown way more respect for this Universe 6 Saiyan than his own brother. Tarble was a Saiyan who told our gang some stuff, and that's it. He didn't fight, he didn't lend assistance, he just stood around and cheered. So much for that then. Now, number 1, in my opinion, the most useless character in Dragon Ball, Sidra. I bet you weren't expecting this one now, were you? Now, sort of like with a Supreme Kai, a guy like Sidra needs to be balanced and know what they have to do in order to prove effective and be just in the role. Belmod, Jean of Universe 12 and Arak of Universe 5 are examples of really good GODs, who ensured their realms were well run and they were strong too. Sidra was neither of those. He is a terrible example. Not only is he a terrible one, but he is also a desperate one, keen to rid himself of the job, and willing to do anything to save face. For example, during the episode 95 debacle, they were seriously considering, Sidra especially, offering Frieza a role in Universe 9's team, and maybe giving him the role that Sidra was currently occupying sooner or later. If Frieza hadn't have refused that, perhaps we may have seen Frieza become Universe 9's destroyer guy. But we didn't get that though. And instead, we have Sidra, and he is the most redundant GOD in the lineup of 12. A typical GOD needs to be aware of their job, and be prepared to destroy in order to ensure an efficient universe which isn't overrun with worlds that have long since outstayed their useful lifespan. But, thanks to his unusually pacifist nature for the role, we have worlds which are barren and desolate, and basically we see places where Mad Max would feel right at home. Sidra has seemingly shirked his job, kind of like Shin has, with the Supreme Kai role. Can you imagine how bad a universe would be with Shin and Sidra working together? Nothing would get done. Why is he this high on the list though? He's just a side character. Well, destroyers are pretty important in the multiverse, and if he can't do that job, well, it all trickles down from there. So what do you guys think? Do you feel that this list was different to the typical ones that you see? What other characters do you think make the cut? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later.